Right, in this video we're going to have a look at these two words. And those two words are expert system. And this is going to be applied obviously predominantly to hospitals. You'll get the hang of this and you realise that you could be used in other scenarios as well. Expert system. Hospitals already have expert systems, you see. If you think about it, a system for a hospital is just basically working out what's wrong with you and then fixing you. They've got an expert system already. It's one of these fellas. It could be a woman, of course, but quite clearly the hospitals already have expert systems in that a doctor is an expert. You see what I've done there? A doctor is an expert. And the reason why they're experts is this. In the UK, as I understand it, I think it's right, but you've got to go to 7 years of medical school before you can even become a GP. So in those 7 years of medical school, a doctor is going to basically learn a lot of things and get a lot of training and acquire an awful lot of knowledge. A word I will come back to. And quite clearly the way traditional doctor systems work is that you go down to your doctor and you meet him and he says hello, and you basically say, here are my symptoms, and as a result of your symptoms, giving your symptoms, he will ask you questions, further questions about your symptoms, and what he's trying to do is to tease out of you a diagnosis, and as a result of the diagnosis he can then recommend a course of action. Okay, and hopefully it would be a case that it would just be something rather simple and hey presto, the next day you're fine. So a doctor, if you like, is an expert. An expert system is a computerized system that is designed to replace and do away with doctors. And what I want to do is, the most famous of all is this one. It's called NHS Direct. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just escape from this for a moment. And I'm going to take you, if we can escape, we'll keep those. And we're actually going to go off to the NHS Direct's website. Now I've got two tabs, just get rid of that because I've just stolen that image of that doctor from Google. Now I've got two tabs, they're absolutely identical, okay? And we're going to show you what happens. So let's imagine now that I am suffering from an allergic reaction. So I'm going to click that one there, and I'm going to go to this one here, allergic reaction. And you'll notice when it comes through, I've got a bit slow broadband at my house, but ultimately these two pages are exactly the same. So let's go to baby rashes on this one, and let's go to baby rashes on this one. Now fingers crossed my broadband connection will be reasonably okay to show you how this works. You can actually see down in the corner, look at that, that's horrific. There we go. So we'll start the symptom checker here, and quite frankly you can see on this page we'll start the symptom checker here. Let's pop back to the first one. So are you inquiring about yourself? Well, it's obviously a baby rashes. Was it rashes? I thought it was babies. Let's just say I'm inquiring about someone else. It's my daughter who's female. And age, I'm going to put her age, which is, she's gone to 11 years. So I'll go next on that one, and I'll do exactly the same on the other one. Oh, I thought I'd done that bit already. Oh, insect bite or sting. I seem to have gone. Don't know what happened there. Damn. All right, let's not worry. Oh, insect bite or sting there. Let's try that again. Maybe I did the wrong thing. I'm sure you'll get the idea in a moment. Let's say it's not a sting on this one, and let's say it's not a sting on this one. I think it might be because I'm using two windows. It's thinking on the same computer, which would be right, really. Mouth swelling. Let's put on here yes, okay, but on this one we'll put no, okay. So I'm going to put next here, yes, mouth swelling, and let's see what answer we get. Is the swelling increasing rapidly? On this one we've got mouth swelling no, and here we still get the same option. So let's put no there, and we'll press next. Got a horrible feeling it might be the fact that I'm using for breathing difficulties. We'll press yes here for swelling rapidly. Breathing difficulties. Oh, I've got a feeling this isn't going to work actually. Never mind. What I'm trying to illustrate is that if I said yes to breathing difficulties there, and we go next. What I would see on the next page would be different. Possible severe breathing problem. So there we've got that one there. Now if we go, I think on this tab here, aren't I? Let's say breathing difficulties, no on this one. In fact, what I might do, so remember a possible severe breathing problem? Let's go back to this one and we'll put no there. I'll press next and see if we get a different answer. Oh, it's not. Oh, damn. Perhaps I haven't illustrated this well, but what I'm trying to get across is, depending on what you put into the system, different screens will appear, and it acts in the same way that a doctor would ask the questions to try and reach a diagnosis. So that's NHS Direct. Let's quickly go back to the PowerPoint and let's F5 and run that again, and we'll bring back our picture of our doctor. So what that computer program is trying to do is replicate what the doctor would do if you went down to see him in the surgery. So remember up here I mentioned about this word knowledge. Let's come back to that now. An expert system has, I seem to have lost my pen. Never mind, let's try ballpoint pen again, and down here ink colour, I want white. Let's try again. The expert system has what we call 3 components to make it work. Now the first of all, it's got to have a knowledge base. Now a knowledge base is simply a list of all known diseases. Not all known, because it may not have every one of them, but also a list of all the symptoms. Now if you think about it logically, that's basically akin to what a doctor gets during their 7 years of medical school training. They develop their knowledge base. So the expert system must have all the knowledge, if you like, of all the different possible diseases and symptoms. But what the doctor does, he'll ask you questions, and as a result of what you tell him, he'll change the next question. So if I say, who's having breathing difficulties, he will say, well, tell me, expand more about how difficult they are. If I say, no breathing difficulties, he'd move on to a different question. And the computer system does this as well, because it has what we refer to as an inference engine. And that means there's a program that sits behind it that simply asks, if you like a spreadsheet would do, if statements. If it's true, then ask this next question. If it's not true, ask a different question. What the computer system also has is a user interface. I won't go back to the screen, but you can clearly see I was able to click little radio buttons saying yes or no, and I press submit buttons, and I'm able to interact with the computer to give it my symptoms. And hopefully if I'd carried on through that one, and I advise you to go to NHS Direct and have a little play with it, you'll find that actually it can come out with diagnosis of what's wrong with you. Although sometimes we do it in class, we tend to find it just basically says go and see a doctor. So I would ask the question of how good it is, but I've never really tested it fully. But I think you can all get the handle on why do we create these expert systems. I think it's fairly obvious. It's to save you having to go to the doctor. And I must admit, I did use it once when I broke out in a horrible rash. And I went, it was like 10 o'clock at night. Of course, no doctor's open, something we'll come to in a moment. And I went to NHS Direct, put my symptoms in, and it said I had hives, and it says go and get some antihistamine. So I went to the garage, got some Benadryl, took it, 20 minutes later, absolutely fine. So there was no need for me actually to go to the doctors, which leads me on to the next component. Oh no, I've run out of slides. Oh dear, what's happened there? Let's use this one. Let's use this one. In fact, I might have to go back one. I think I must have pressed return a couple of times. It's not that. Let's have a look at what I want to focus on now. What are the advantages to everybody really of expert systems? Well, in theory, what it will introduce is consistency in diagnosis. Now, if you and I put in exactly the same responses to the questions from 2 different computers, we should, in theory, get exactly the same diagnosis of what's wrong with us. It's not reliable. You might go to 2 different doctors, give them the same symptoms, and they might come to 2 different diagnoses. Not saying that's right or wrong, but one thing is for sure, we should see some consistency in the diagnosis made by an expert system.
Now, quite frankly, it is clearly cheaper to use an expert system I'm going to qualify this long term, and we'll come to disadvantages in a minute. It's quite clearly cheaper to use an expert system than, in fact, paying doctors. Okay? Sometimes it used to be the case, if you got sick and it was out of hours, say that allergic reaction that I had, I'd have had to go to one of these overnight medical centres. The doctor would examine me, and of course he'd be paying the doctor, and probably on time and a half for being there at night as well, I would have thought. But we don't have to pay doctors in an expert system. I'm not saying an expert system is going to cure every single thing, and there's no need for doctors at all in the future, but certainly it helps with some of the cases that crop up that perhaps don't need urgent attention. Now, one thing that we mentioned is about the doctor requires 7 years worth of training, but in fact you still can never learn everything. That's why we have specialists in hospitals. But one thing is for sure, your expert system, if it was created and data was put into it, diagnoses and symptoms, by many doctors, it should in theory have a larger knowledge pool than any single doctor. So it might well be that you can put your symptoms into the expert system, and it'll give you an answer, where some doctors might just go, I don't know what's wrong with you, quite frankly. I think you're malingering. Look the word malingering up. So yeah, of course, and the one thing I mentioned that a moment ago was idea was that I was down at 10 o'clock at night it happened. Your expert system, NHS Direct, is available 24/7, 365, is that right? 24/7, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Assuming, of course, and we'll come to disadvantage, but I won't actually deal with it here, assuming that it is online. And after all, you can get power outages and you could have crashes in the system, etc. But let's assume that it's on permanently. One thing's for sure, it's going to be available a lot more than your local doctor's surgery. Here's one. In theory, if there's consistency and you put in the right symptoms, there should be no mistakes. Or indeed, what was the thing I was going to say? Oh yeah, I'm labouring a point. Sometimes doctors can make mistakes. Or it's supposed to be an E, not an O. Or actually they can forget things. I mean, you do 7 years of training, there may be things you learn in there that you see once every 3 or 4 years. You can actually forget certain symptoms means a certain disease. But an expert system, a computerized system, is incapable of forgetting. And in theory, if the patient puts in the correct symptoms, it shouldn't make a mistake. We'll come on to that one on the next slide. It shouldn't make a mistake. Now, an expression that we use a lot within ICT, I think I've probably brought that to in previous videos, is GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. The expert system cannot think. It doesn't have intelligence. So, if whilst we're building the system, somebody puts in that a swollen throat and bulging eyes is sign of a broken leg, then if you put in your symptoms are, I've got a swollen neck and bulging eyes, it will come back and say, well, you've got a broken leg. It is clearly incorrect. So what we're trying to get at is that it relies on the rules, and of course the rules that are in the knowledge base, being correct. If those rules are not correct, then what you can end up with is somebody put incorrect rules into the system, and therefore if I put the symptoms in something that's incorrect, I'm going to get a diagnosis, garbage out, that's incorrect. So that's one of the disadvantages of your expert system. I mentioned in a previous video that at some point I think you should watch House. If you just watch a couple of episodes of it, I really do think it's quite important. And the thing in House is that you always get, basically no one can work out what's wrong with them, they have all these symptoms, and ultimately it turns out to be something like he's swallowed some ant killer or something that's in the kitchen, and no one can spot it. Because what an expert system can't do is perhaps come up with a creative solution, especially this is the big one, if there are kind of like two issues, if I'd swallowed some ant killer and taken and also been bitten by a scorpion, I might have a range of symptoms that perhaps the expert system couldn't really get their head around because there's two issues. So sometimes you've got to have a creative solution as to what's wrong with the person. And as I said, if you watch House, you'll get an idea of why sometimes a computerized system just couldn't spot the problems that relate to the patient. I did mention it was cheaper, but of course there are still costs. In fact, there are an awful lot of costs in the setup. One, you've got to have the computers, you've got to have the programs to make the computers, you've got to pay the doctors to put the knowledge into the knowledge base, and that takes you a lot of time. Hold on a moment. That takes you a lot of human resources, the doctors to put the stuff in, and what was the third one? Can you remember some videos back a while ago? Human resources, I can remember. Financial, because you've got to buy the hardware and put the system in place. It's not free to have an expert system hosted online 24/7, 365 with lots of people using it. I think that's about it, really. I think, yeah, to most people, I think that'll do. I hope you understand what an expert system is. In an exam, you have to understand, oh, I'm supposed to be going back. There we go. Oh, where was it? Oh, I don't know where it's gone now. I'm trying to find the slide. There it is. In an exam, it will normally ask you, what are the three components of an expert system? Please get that it's a knowledge base. Please don't put down it's a database. It always says on mark schemes, give no marks if they say database. If you want the three components, you have to learn this, learn it, knowledge base, inference engine, user interface, and then it's likely to say, explain the advantages and disadvantages to the patient of using such a system, which we've just been through. So hopefully that should all make sense, and you should now all understand what an expert system is. And if you do one thing after this video, just go and have a play with NHS Direct. It's kind of fun to put stuff in and see if you can trick the system into not giving you a correct diagnosis, which you could do if it's been GIGO'd, but it's unlikely.